First of all, the fact that the head of Amnesty International in Turkey is behind the bars because of his alleged use of an encrypted messaging application that the Turkish government claims to be used by the coup plotters back in 2016, has all kinds of problems in itself. Because this is guilt by association. Even if Taner used that application, this didn't mean his membership to any particular group, despite the fact that Taner already denies any kind of use of that particular application. On the other hand, there had been several reports published in United Kingdom, in Netherlands, about the use of BILOG, the aforementioned encrypted messaging system, that it cannot be used as an evidence against anybody, in fact, not only against Taner. The issue of how the Turkish government or Turkish intelligence has gathered the information about who was using this particular messaging app is also problematic, meaning that the evidence that is presented to the Turkish courts are not actually evidence, they are intelligence. And intelligence reports cannot be used as evidence in any court because you never know how that information is gathered. And the Turkish government says that we cannot reveal how we actually acquired that information because that will reveal our intelligence abilities. Well, this is precisely why intelligence reports are not acceptable as evidence. But of course, Turkey is passing through a state of emergency, and under this state of emergency, the judiciary or judicial processes, which are meant to be processes of decision-making, not punishing, have already become mechanisms of punishing. So people who are detained are not detained so as to bring about truth about what happened or who is guilty. They are detained because the government believes they are guilty, and their detainment is already a part of the punishment. And what we see here about Taner is Taner's detainment is an arrest is actually a part of the punishment or execution of a verdict that is yet to be given. This has happened several times. Journalists were released by a court, and the same day they were arrested by the decision of a same equal level court. Several journalists were released, but they went to their houses when they were merrymaking. Suddenly they were rearrested. In cases, a wife was released, but in the afternoon the husband was arrested. So it has become a kind of psychological torture on the people who are in the blacklist of the government. I hope the world is going to realize that the Turkish judicial system is totally sick and is in fact in a sadistic mood by means of its execution of its processes. This particular theater play was actually on the show for almost 2 years now. It is not about the play itself that was problematized by the Turkish regime. It was the person himself which is problematized, and understandably this relates to the Turkish army's Afrin operation. When the Turkish army was mobilized to enter into northern Syria, the artist in question made social media messages against the operation, and the Turkish government is quite able to mobilize other artists, celebrities, in support of its own policies. So Baris was a critical voice. In fact, one of the very rare critical artists who dared and was strong enough, courageous enough to say something against the operation. And he is being punished not because of what he used to say in the play, which is on for 2 years now, but because who he is. This is precisely the problem of the Turkish judicial system. About more than 52,000 people are behind the bars, not because of what they have done, but because of their identities, their senses of belongingness to a particular community or even to an ethnic minority, the Kurds. So it's not about what you have done or what a play can be saying to the people, it's about who you are. The same is true for the manager of the now defunct Samanyolu TV group. Hidayet Karaca is behind the bars for over 4 years now, and if nothing changes in Turkey, he will stay there 40 years, may he live long, only because of a fictitious soap opera where the scriptwriters of the soap opera claimed a few things about the links between Turkish government or Turkish officials and the Al-Qaeda operatives. Now, it's all common knowledge that those operations happened, and in fact, Turkey is being guarded by the Free Syrian Army, which actually is partly Al-Qaeda, because Jabhat al-Nusra is a constitutive part of the Free Syrian Army, and it is openly an Al-Qaeda group, and Turkish army is cooperating with them. So Hidayet Karaca's guilt was to have that script filmed and broadcasted, and he's behind the bars. So unfortunately, the Turkish scene is quite lunatic, and many people, from artists to writers to authors, and even plain people who sent some tweets against the government, are behind the bars. This is particularly the concern that the opposition people or people of peace and democracy in Turkey are carrying. It seems that the Turkish government is determined to do ugly things there. Because if a total nation is behind you about operations, and in fact the main opposition party, second opposition party, are all endorsing the operation, this is a Turkish illness. You know, whenever the Turkish army does something cross borders, the whole society is behind it, and unfortunately there is no checks and balances system here, because the army knows that they will not receive any criticism about what they may have been doing there. Only HDP, the Kurdish Nationalist Party, will say something, but you will remember the Turkish president actually challenged them and threatened them by name and said, you, the people of HDP, if you go to the streets and if you protest against this, you are going to see the results. And they have seen the results. The number of people who are arrested because of their social media messages is over 300, but more than that are arrested because of their dare to go to the streets and protest. Whereas in European capitals, the number of people who are protesting against Turkish operation into Afrin may be hundreds of thousands now, but in Turkey, people are afraid to say even a few words against it. Well, I can say what kind of messages are deemed to be regarded as crime in Turkey about Afrin operation. If you say, let civilians not die, this is a crime. If you say a war is a public health issue because people are dying, and this is precisely what the Turkish Doctors Association said, and they were criminalized because of what they have said in their message. So, unfortunately, the Turkish government has gone back to the overall Middle Eastern understanding of equation of an idea with an act, an equation of a representation with the reality itself. You will remember the caricature crisis when in the West people drew caricatures of Islamic holy people, including the Prophet of Islam, peace be upon him. But in the Middle East, it was regarded as the Prophet, not a representation of a prophet in the mindset of the caricaturist. It's not our prophet, it is the prophet in the mind of a Danish cartoonist, yes, but in the Middle East it is very difficult to make the distinction. Now I can see that the Turkish regime cannot make the distinction also. So it shouldn't come to us as a surprise that any picture of, say, President Erdogan of Turkey will be seen as holy. You have seen his, the statue of his hand is being exhibited here and there. This is precisely because it is not regarded as a piece of art, as a statue, but as the hand itself. So these messages are also not regarded as just words, they are regarded as deeds, and they are punished. That's one of the major problems in Turkey. The judiciary, particularly the appellate judiciary, where you apply for review of the decisions of the lower courts, is fully under control of the government. They are fully politicized. It's not that they are only supporting the acts of the government, they are sometimes being better kings than the king himself. So I can say the wrongdoings are not always coming from the office of the president. They are willfully and readily done by the lower courts. And sometimes even in order to secure their wealth and their positions in the judiciary, people do things that even the palace, the presidential palace, wouldn't care about. So that's an epidemic in the Turkish judiciary, that nobody is courageous enough to say this is illegal. Even in the higher courts, the Court of Appeals and so on, they are already ready to collaborate with the government by means of delaying the decisions. Because they know that in the end, the people who are victimized by the Turkish government eventually will reach to the European Court of Human Rights, and Turkey is going to be pushed to the edge of paying compensations and releasing those people and so on. So the Turkish judiciary has willfully established a lengthy process of appealing. The Turkish Supreme Court, the Constitutional Court, has been established an additional court of appeal, and it takes years before you can consummate the domestic remedies in Turkey before you are, you are accepted to apply to the European Court of Human Rights. In that sense, the Turkish justice system is collaborating with the regime to delay the justice. This is completely the opposite of what we would be expecting from just justice.